Live. All right, good morning. Thanks for joining us here in December. We're in the final month of the year. So last week when we gathered here, last Wednesday, we were all getting ready for Thanksgiving. Family was coming in, people were preparing the side dishes and the meals, everything was getting prepped. And we had Thanksgiving last Thursday. How fast has your Thanksgiving week went? Just a week ago, we were gathered around the table with our friends and family, and we were trying to give thanks. But ultimately, probably the discussion started shifting to Christmas. What are we doing for Christmas? What's the plans? And what do you want? Well, we got bombarded by Black Friday. Parking lots are full, malls, shopping centers, everybody's out rushing to buy. Then Small Business Saturday hit, so we just continued going to the boutiques and the knick-knack stores and buying that maybe little custom cute gift for that special person. Sunday started Advent, first day of Advent. Monday rolls around and Cyber Monday hits us. Our phones and our emails are bombarded with the discounts and the sales on all the great websites and the things we have to have this holiday season. And then yesterday was Giving Tuesday. It's the day we donate and we give to charities and local organizations or your church or whatever it is. It's called Giving Tuesday. Always happens right after Cyber Monday. So hopefully you had a chance to give something yesterday. All that said, we're here today and we are exactly 3 weeks from Christmas. 21 days, we'll be waking up at this time. Unless you got kids, you've probably already been up for a couple hours and opening the gifts and celebrating Christmas. 28 days, you'll be in a new year. You'll be in 2025, and this year will have passed. So there's no doubt, 'tis the season. 'Tis the season to be jolly. 'Tis the season to be merry. But it's really 'tis the season to start celebrating the King of Kings and Lords of Lords, because we're really here to celebrate the arrival and birth of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Today's message is, 'tis the season. So what does Christmas season mean to you? If somebody were to come up to you and just say, what's Christmas mean to you? How would you answer? What would be the first thoughts or words out of your mouth? Is it family? The gifts? Maybe it's some traditions? But have you ever really just stared at a nativity scene and just thought about it all? The simplicity of that manger with the baby Jesus lying there, Mary and Joseph kneeling, watching over him, simple barn animals nearby, and the star in the sky. It's a simple picture, it's a simple scene, and yet it carries so much weight and impact. It changed the world forever. So we have to think about this. Is it the gifts? Is it the gatherings? Or is it the giving? Because God gave us the greatest gift we could ever have in Jesus Christ. And He gave us the greatest story ever told. So this Christmas, let's break out that story. Let's focus on the story of Christmas, the birth of Jesus. In Matthew chapter 1, verse 21, it says, she will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. Now let's be honest, the world can become overwhelming for some people at Christmas. They can just overwhelm you. There's high expectations. House has to look right, decorations have to look right. Every light's got to twinkle just right. You got to have the perfect Clark Griswold home with just enough lights on there. Busy schedules. We have all kinds of invitations for business meetings and luncheons and gala events and whatever. And some people focus and worry about money. Do I have enough to cover it all? Because the expectations are high. And the preparations, they're non-ending. There's list after list and things to buy and things to do and to prepare for people coming over and the visitors and to take food to grandma's house. And it can be overwhelming. And some people, they have to think, where do I turn when they get anxious? They get nervous. And realistically, some people just get lonely at Christmas. So if you're dealing with any of those things, whatever boat you're in, read the Christmas story this season. Because your hope and your joy is in that story. You can just sit down at a breakfast table with a cup of coffee by yourself and start reading Matthew 1. And you can just read the Christmas story. Because there, no matter what you're going through, the highs and lows, you will find the true spirit of Christmas. A lady, she was anonymous, she wrote a letter. And she talked about years ago, her and her husband, their kid was in a private school. He played on a basketball team. They went to a basketball tournament about this time of year. We know that between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we have lots of basketball tournaments. And they went to a basketball tournament, and they were so proud. They're a little private school. They come out. They've got their shiny blue and gold uniforms, matching shoes, the warm-ups. Stands were packed. They come out. They run their lap. They go through all their organized drills. Well, in this tournament, they were playing a small team from the inner city that was sponsored by a local boys club. And as the other team came out, they had old raggedy jerseys that you could barely even see the faded numbers. None of their shorts matched. And they had their own worn out tennis shoes that were barely held together by the shoestrings. And as the game progressed, the couple sat there and cheered on their son in their private school, and they easily defeated this team quite handedly. And the father made a comment. He said, you know, I feel bad for that other team because those boys have some talent. And I hope that by getting beat this badly, it doesn't just take the heart out of them. They just don't have the resources. They had no crowd. They had nobody supporting them. They just didn't have any basketball equipment. They didn't have nice-looking uniforms. It was just hard for them to feel good about themselves in an environment, especially seeing this other team that had the best of everything, the best support, the best crowd, the best shoes, the best equipment. And they barely could, all they could do was to find a way to get there and play a game. And yet the dad recognized how talented these young boys were. They just didn't have the resources that their team had. Well, the dad was not a big Christmas guy in the sense he didn't like gifts. He was a good Christian man. He was all about Christmas, don't get me wrong. But, so every Christmas he always asked that people, instead of giving him something, make a donation to a charity. He really was a giver and a charitable guy. And as he was telling his wife how much talent he saw in these young inner city boys club team, later that afternoon she went Christmas shopping, and she went to a sporting goods store, and she bought some basketballs, and she bought some shoes and some equipment, and she gathered it all up and she took it to the boys club. And she took the receipt from all the stuff she had bought and donated to this basketball team, and she taped it to a Christmas card, wrote her husband a note, and she put the card in the tree, so on Christmas morning, he opened it up, and he was overcome with emotion. He's like, that's the best gift I've ever had. Because something good is going to come about that. And just that simple act of giving and acknowledging someone else in need over Christmas may change the trajectory of that young man's life. And that was their tradition. Well, as she wrote the story, she talked about a few years ago her husband passed away. And that first Christmas was really hard on her, but she was not going to give up the tradition. So she made another contribution to a local charitable organization. There was a group of handicapped kids who wanted to go to a hockey game, and she had purchased all the tickets, and she still put the receipt in the card. She still wrote a note to her husband, and she put the envelope in the tree. That next morning, Christmas morning, when she woke up, she came downstairs, and there was 3 other envelopes in the tree, and they were from their 3 children. They too had learned from their dad. And they had taken what small amount of money they had from doing chores around the house or making odds and ends meet, some allowance money, and they had done something nice for someone that they knew of at their school that needed some extra help. And they too wrote their dad a note and put it in that tree. And you see, the legacy lived on because the man had a giving heart during the holidays. His tradition continued to live even after his passing because his wife and his children refused to let go of the true spirit of Christmas. In Matthew 1:23, the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. Have we ever really thought on Christmas it's about God being with us? He sent his son Jesus, who was fully God, fully man, one and the same, and he came to this earth to be with us for his presence, for his gift, for his legacy to live inside of all of us. Now, everyone will have some period of despair, isolation, or sometimes you just feel the old bah humbug at some point during this Christmas season. And you're not alone if you feel that way. And one of the biggest lies the devil will tell you is that everyone else's holidays are better than yours. Everybody's got better lights, better gifts, better dinners. You'll see social media pictures and posts and all this stuff. And the devil will try to convince you everybody else's holiday is better than yours. And it's a lie. Just look around and see God's goodness in simple things. It may just be in a fire, in the fireplace. You ever just stare at a fire on a cold, dark night and just watch the fire and feel the warmth? It may be in a simple cup of hot chocolate. It may just be standing outside in your neighborhood just looking at all the lights in the dark, cold, and just how peaceful those lights can be. Or if you're driving home, you just notice all the lights. Simple things. This Christmas, focus on the gifts you already have, because you have so many gifts and blessings that are already right there for you. And sometimes we do. We run and we chase the next gift, and we drive right by the gift, and we ignore the gift right in front of us. You see, your home is a homeless person's dream, and your job is the envy of the unemployed. Your smile is the hope of those who are depressed. Your health is the wish for what the people who are sick, what they wish for. So focus on your blessings this holiday and watch your negativity just disappear. It's time to start counting our blessings and not our problems. Leif Anderson does a podcast, and he did one called A God's Eye View of Christmas. And he tells a story about he was on some missionary work. And he was in the Manila, Philippines. Manila is the capital of the Philippines. The city of Manila is 15 million people. So let me put that in perspective. The state of Oklahoma has 4 million people. So this one city has 15. It's almost 4 times the size of the entire state of Oklahoma in a city on a small Philippine islands. And yet the city of Manila looks very impressive. But a lot of the people don't live in the city. They live in the outskirts on the garbage dumps. A city of 15 million people generates a lot of garbage and a lot of trash. How many sacks of trash did you have this past weekend after Thanksgiving? How many times did you have to go to a dump or overstuff your trash can? What about Christmas, day after Christmas? How many boxes do you get rid of? How much stuff do you get rid of between Thanksgiving and Christmas? Oh, that tree's bent. It's old. I'm going to have to get a new tree for the year. What about this thing? You just start recycling. Well, think about 15 million people. These garbage dumps aren't even like what we imagine. Oh, they're massive. They're acres. They're as far as the eye can see, and they're on the outskirts. And the waste management trucks go nonstop. But there's something else on these garbage dumps. Large amounts of people live there. Millions of people live on the garbage dumps of Manila. They take what the rest of the world throws away and they build shacks and homes, and they're basically homeless encampments living on garbage. And whenever the trucks come in and leave, they'll send their children out hurriedly and they'll rummage through the garbage looking for food, looking for something to survive. An old pair of shoes that are thrown away, half a box of pizza, whatever they can find to survive on. And what's crazy about this, there are people who have been born on the garbage dumps in Manila, have grown up in the garbage dumps of Manila, have had their own families and children, and have died and lived their entire lives on the garbage dumps of Manila, and they never leave. Their entire life existence is in that one area. But in his podcast, he went on to say there's another group of people that live on the garbage dumps. They're Americans. Well, why would Americans live on the garbage dumps in the Manila, Philippines? They're missionaries. And outside the dumps, they set up large missionary tents and they try to support and feed and give back to the community. And they're just there to witness and share the message of Jesus Christ. And they made a choice to leave their home country, the United States, and their home and their wealth and all their security to go to the garbage dumps in a foreign country just to share the message of Jesus. What a sacrifice. And we think about the glory of heaven, the majesty of heaven. Jesus was on the right-hand throne of God. And he chose to come to earth. And from heaven's perspective, if you look at earth, it might have looked like a garbage dump. And yet he chose to come on Christmas. He chose to come down not to the sound of trumpets, not to breaking news, not to a news feed. He came down simply in a manger as a baby to serve. And he came to serve the poor and the needy. And he came to save our sins. We think about the three kings or the three wise men that we hear of in the story. Think about this. These were kings of countries, far off countries. And they were in palaces, safe and secure. And they easily could have said, they could have sent somebody with some gifts, or they could have said, go look at this baby Jesus. But they chose to leave the comfort of their own homes and travel with these gifts themselves to see the newborn king. They left their security. And to travel far distances in those times with gifts like gold and spices, frankincense and myrrh was high risk. They didn't have to do it. They could have sent somebody in their place. Somebody else will do it. But they chose to go because what they were looking for that Christmas was the true meaning of Christmas. They were looking for baby Jesus. And how did they find him? They looked for the star. The star would guide them. So this Christmas, I urge each of us, look for the star. Find that star. Let it navigate you through this Christmas. Matthew 2:10 says, when they saw the star, they were overjoyed. When they saw the star, it's all they needed was the sign. So focus on the star this Christmas. Hold on to your faith. Believe in the miracles, even while you're serving others. Because Jesus came to serve, and he calls us to imitate that. I shared the story last year of Rudolph, which Bob May wrote in 1938. And Bob May worked at Montgomery Ward's, but the sad part of the story was his wife was terminally ill and only had a few days left. And so he was working and being the dad to their young daughter. And every night when he would tuck his daughter in, Daddy, Daddy, tell me a story. He just made up this random story about some little funky reindeer. And he just started telling a story about this reindeer. And every night when he tucked her in, what story do you want to hear? Tell me about the reindeer, Daddy. Tell me more about the reindeer. And every night he started just making stuff up and making up all these characters you see in the show and the movie and the classic. And he started making up a story about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Well, his wife passed away before Christmas. He was in his office looking out the window on Christmas Eve, and a heavy fog bank was coming in. And he knew his daughter was going to ask for the same thing that night. Tell me about the reindeer at Christmas. And he didn't know how to wrap up the story. And the fog bank rolled in, and he could barely see out his window, and the aha moment hit. Rudolph had a gift. God had blessed that little reindeer with this little red nose. And by golly, he was going to get Santa through the fog bank. So that night, he completed the story for Christmas and told his daughter how Rudolph saved the day, saved Christmas. Well, he wanted to capture that story, so he jotted it all down. He'd made up this wild story, and he just wrote it all down. And the next year's Christmas party, he had told some of his fellow co-workers about it, and one of them put him on the spot at the Christmas party. Probably had too much eggnog, got on the mic, and said, Bob, come up here and tell us your Christmas story. Bob gets up there and tells the office party, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And the owner of Montgomery Wards was like, wow. And he approached Bob and said, I want that story. Let's put it in a book. Let's do a little pamphlet to honor your wife and your daughter. And we'll give it away at our store. So for years, people would come into Montgomery Wards and buy stuff, and they would hand out this little pamphlet, which was the simple story of Rudolph. And it spread so fast, people would come to the store just to get the book. And sales were booming because everybody wanted to come shop at Montgomery Ward because they had to have the book. Well, one day a publisher walks in to the Montgomery Ward CEO and says, hey, that book, I've read it. That's a cool story. We want to buy the publishing rights. We want to take it across the country and worldwide. And here's an offer and a royalty. And the owner looked at it and said, wow, that's a lot of money. From a little pamphlet that was just helping him sell some perfume and sell some shoes, here was an offer of a large sum of money. And he said, I'll think about it. And he thought about it. And he took an envelope to Bob May's office, who wrote the story, and said, here's your Christmas bonus. And Bob opened the letter, and it was the rights to his story. He said, what are you giving me the rights to my story back? He says, your story and you deserve it. And oh, by the way, here's a contract from a publisher. It's going to make you a very wealthy man. And he did the right thing at Christmas. He gave back what he had been blessed by. He gave it back to the guy who originated it. And the story lived on, and we know there's books, we know there's movies, and Bob bought a brand new large mansion, became very wealthy and famous. 10 years later, they approached Gene Autry, the singing cowboy, and they write this song, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Had a very shiny nose. We all know the song. And Gene Autry, they approached him because they wanted the best of the best. And he said, I don't know, it's a children's song. It's, I'm the singing cowboy. He said, I'll give it a thought. And at night, he would sit in his home and strum, and he would put the whole song together, and his wife would sit on the couch and listen to him. And one night, after a few nights, he said, I'm not going to do it. And she said, what? I love that song. You're going to do it. And like most husbands, he did it because the wife told him to. She said, that's an inspirational story. That's going to touch people's hearts, particularly young children, the ones that might get made fun of, the ones who may get out. You have to give this song to the country. So they recorded the song, and it went to #1, and it's a popular song. And later, because of that song, he was asked to write Frosty the Snowman, and Here Comes Santa Claus, and he did all the songs. And he too was blessed. And you look back and you see how God works at Christmas. A man whose wife was dying and his little daughter just wanted a bedtime story ends up becoming this massive story, this massive legacy of this little red-nosed reindeer, and songs and movies and whatever. And in fact, this year in 2024, the Library of Congress put the song in the National Historical Registry as one of the most iconic American songs. And they said it was so inspirational because it says we all have a gift. We all have a gift to use to make a difference at this time of year. So what's your gift? What's God blessed you with? And how are you going to use it this Christmas? Charles Dickens, who wrote Scrooge, said, "No one is useless in this world who lightens the burdens of others." So maybe that's our calling, to be like little Rudolph, to lighten someone's burdens, to make it a better Christmas for someone else. Maybe we're like the missionaries on that garbage dump who just need to leave the comfort of our own self-containment and share the word of Jesus to somebody else. Maybe we're like that wife who saw a need to donate some sporting goods to a team to give some young boys some hope. Everybody's got a gift. Everybody's got something they can do. So I challenge you as we enter this Christmas season, find out what your gift is. Find out what you can do and pray and ask God to touch your heart. Galatians 6:2, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. You see, Jesus came for the lost on Christmas. That's why he came. He came for the lost. And during his time on earth, he told lots of parables about a lost coin, about a lost son, about lost sheep. And none of these things ever lost their value because they were lost. In fact, it was their value that prompted their pursuit in the first place. And that's the message of Christmas. Jesus came for you because you're valuable. Even if you've been lost in a fog, depressed, anxious, or just haven't found your way in this world, your value has not been diminished. In fact, it's that very value is why Jesus was born in a manger. He came for you because you were valuable. You have a gift to share with the world. So give it and carry on the spirit of Christmas, because after all, 'tis the season to give. Have a blessed week. We've got 2 more Christmas messages coming up. We hope you join us as we head towards the most wonderful time of the year. Have a wonderful week, and may God